sobriety. And this Sunday, we're looking at what I'm calling the Big Hug. Ronald Rolheiser, in his book, The Sacred Flame, calls it the widened embrace. We open up to the grandeur and the mystery of the other in the Big Hug. And somewhat ironically, this sign of maturity is really a characteristic of being a kid. Children are naturally curious. They're awe-inspired and enraptured by what they don't know, especially if it's slimy or it happens in the bathroom, right? But anyway, they're enraptured and they're intrigued by what they don't know. When I think back on my years in elementary school, most of the time I remember being very bewildered and very much in wonder about the world around me. I was constantly hugging the unknown because most of my childhood we kept moving and meeting new people, and my mother or father would say, "Why don't you give Miss Emily a hug?" You know, that whole thing. You probably had that instruction too. Give them a hug. So we lived in a lot of places, and that was my kind of world, was wonder and bewilderment. But I suspect that most children, even the ones who grow up in the same place, in the same family, same house, have that experience where there's so much that you don't understand. For children, there's so little that we can control or predict or structure. We don't know how it all fit together when we were kids. You're just a kid. Nobody really took the time to explain much. And kids have to make sense of an extraordinarily complex world with only the simplest tools. Let's admit it. Most of the skills that kids receive, they weaponize. They weaponize. Even as kids, we learn how to control. We learn how to become superior to someone else or how to have power. When kids discover that they have power, even by refusing to give a hug, even by sticking their lower lip out and making their eyes really big so that they got what they wanted, it was a way of learning how to control. Words became sticks and stones. Sticks and stones became toy guns and toy grenades. This is just what it's like. Recess becomes like the geopolitics of tribes and alliances. Do you remember this? Do you remember your swing set at your playground? I remember that place was like a minefield. Who was allowed on the swing set? Who wasn't? Is this resonating for anybody? Okay. Okay. In the Gospels, the first 4 books of the New Testament, we hear about the life and teachings of Jesus. And there are no childhood stories about Jesus. We don't know what he was like as a kid. But what we can surmise is that he was one. He was a kid. And just like the rest of us, he grew up learning how to put names and words and concepts onto a very complex, bewildering, and often sinister world. And then, at the age of 30, he pivoted. And he spent 3 years offering a divine vision, a reboot, an alternative way of being that was different from what he had grown up with. Now, hear me when I say this. Jesus did not abandon his Jewish faith. To the contrary, he plunged deeper in. And where others wanted to just obey the rules, keep those simple categories, check the boxes, Jesus wanted to move us all past that superficiality into something profound. He, too, had to make a change, just like we are invited to as we mature in our faith in God. He wanted to move past the superficiality and live in Yahweh's heart. But to do that, he had to change. Just a little, but enough. So one day, he's traveling around and he's teaching and he's healing and he goes to Tyre. And I suspect that he went there because he was tired. All right, okay. So he goes in a house and he shuts the door and he's hoping for a little peace and quiet. And then there's a knock. Jesus could not escape notice, of course not. He swings the door open. He's exasperated. He's probably hoping it's just Peter who forgot his keys. He just needs to grab them and he'll be out of there. But no, there she is, a stranger, an other. She has an accent. She has scarification on her cheeks, as if all to signal to the world and Jesus that she should not be trusted. She does not belong. Do not talk to her. Jesus heard the stranger danger talk just like we did. And now she was in front of him. Even her desperate look was like a neon sign of warning. His childhood, his growing up years, all had prepared him for how to handle that encounter. Instinct screamed, "Do not engage. She's not one of us." But Jesus didn't slam the door on her face. He opened the door wider. He engaged. And almost instantly, I suspect, the street filled with people. Most of them were his people, Jews. This was a Jewish neighborhood, of course. So Jesus is faced with the decision that we all face. What will he embrace? What will be included in the big hug of his maturing spirituality? He's faced with that decision just like us. Who and what will we open ourselves to? Will he hug his control, his habits, his preconceptions, or will he widen his life and be present to a new situation? Jesus puts his arms on the door rest, I'm just imagining, and he leans there and he looks at her, and the minute he does this, she's on her knees with her hands on his feet, begging. Hearing her beg as she cries, "My daughter, please help my daughter." And Jesus meets the eye, not of her, because she's at his feet, of all those people watching him. And they're all waiting to see, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? And he sees them sneering, and he sees them whispering to one another, and their words are becoming sticks and stones. She is in their way. They want Jesus' attention. She doesn't deserve it. Jesus speaks to her loudly, enough so that all of us can hear. Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. The listeners nod, yeah, that is so right, and they chuckle. They know they are children. Children, yes, children who want what they want, who have learned to bully, to separate, to complain. It's not fair. Those children. The dog, faithfully at Jesus' feet, desperate on behalf of her child, understands the cruelty of children. She understands the dynamic of otherness. She knows what she is in this metaphor. But she demands Jesus grow up. Even the dogs under the table get the children's crumbs, she says. She is literally crouched under the table, the invisible table of her social location. She is a supplicant, and she knows where she is crouching at the place of mystery. She is ready for whatever it is Jesus can do, which she doesn't really know why or how, but she knows there is a bread of heaven above her that might fall into her life and save her child, her love, her future. Her embrace of Jesus is as specific as it can be, but yet it is also one historical moment that we have remembered 2,000 years later. This is a story we're healing of his healing her daughter, just like that. And those watching do not forget. They already knew he could do it, but who he is healing is distinctive. This healing is an invitation and a challenge and a sign of what is expected of us all. Widen your embrace. Give the big hug, not just to your people, not just to your species, not just to your country, Widen your embrace so that the whole world is encompassed in your love. In this life, none of us can achieve that. And that is not the point. The point is to try, to wedge open all those ways that we have been preconditioned, taught, made instinctively reluctant to do, and to widen. To let the Holy Spirit unclench those locked places in our minds. Instead of becoming apathetic because we're just insignificant parts of this giant world, we can celebrate that we belong here, and our purpose here is together to make a change. The cardinal, the cricket, the candlestick makers, all of us belong together, and the big hug changes us. Ronald Rolheiser sums it up this way: spiritual maturity is having a humble contentment with mystery. You can't hug a mystery, but it can hug you, and it already does. Will you open yourself to it? How many people do you know whom you would expect by their years to be wise because they have lived so many years, and yet they are anxious, they are compulsive, they are reactive? What would happen if they were able to embrace the wideness of God's grace and mercy? What gift that would be for them and for us. The big hug, that widened embrace, is moving past our anxiety, our compulsion, our need to control, our reactivity to what we can't. As Walter Brueggemann puts it, the world for which you have been so carefully prepared is being taken away from you by the grace of God. The world, that school, that cultural formation, that social location that shaped you and prepared you so well, is being taken away from you by the grace of God. Hurrah! Woo! We're going to have something so much better and bigger and wider and full and rich when we open ourselves to it. And as we do that, we are invited to embrace the holy. And holiness is not moral perfection. No. Holiness is what is divinely other than us. Bigger, more mysterious, God who is other is holy. Holiness is God's nature, the supreme mystery of something so perfect, so transcendent and beautiful and love-filled and joyous that we can't even get our heads around it. That is holy. Be other, be greater. That's our invitation, to join in that mystery and be holy as God is holy. People with spiritual maturity have something about them that is so attractive. Their lives carry something of the mystery, the unknowableness, and we're attracted to it. We respect it. We too can have that. These are the signs that we're getting there. We relentlessly tell the truth to ourselves and to others, and we open ourselves to the mystery of the other. By the grace of God, may our carefully constructed lives be taken away from us. And may we lift our hands and widen our arms and receive the wonder of God in return. Greater and oh so glorious will it be.